Akira has influenced anime, video games, and even Western media for almost 40 years, and I have never seen it. Hi, I'm Rev, the Anivangelist, and welcome to my series, Anime Confessions, where I admit that, despite being a massive weeb and curator of animation, there are still movies and series I haven't gotten around to. For today's confession, I'll share what I know about Akira before watching it, and then, through the magic of editing, follow up with my post-viewing thoughts. Veteran otaku can absolve my sins by roasting me in the comments, and converts can breathe easy knowing that we all have a backlog of content. So, of all the influential cyberpunk and dystopian anime, how did I sleep on Akira? In my defense, Akira came out when I was but a wee babe, and I grew up in a very religious and conservative household that would never have let me watch something so violent and subversive.
Violence is never the right answer, except when used against heathens and monsters.
Dating myself further, during the early 2000s, outside of Toonami and Adult Swim, anime was pretty much not available or stupid expensive. And college in the late 2000s wasn't much better. This is back before Crunchyroll had swapped their straw hat for their suit and tie. And since one of my majors was theater performance, I never really felt right swashbuckling the media that I someday hoped to create. Even if I had climbed aboard the Thousand Sunny, I wouldn't have had the time anyway, what with 2 majors in different departments, 2 part-time jobs. What can I say? I'm a glutton for punishment. I said after the sermon. Shoo! Shoo! So, this is where I cover things I know about Akira before I watch it, like how there are Akira references everywhere, from throwaway jokes in Rick and Morty.
Oh, real nice, Rick. Turning our son into an Akira?
To more obvious homages like Eleven in Stranger Things. I also know Akira involves a neo-futurist cyberpunk setting and political unrest, so movies like The Matrix and Looper being influenced by it isn't surprising. And every single motorcycle slide since Akira's release in 1988 is clearly an homage to this bit of cinematography.
Leave me alone!
Akira!
The meme hasn't escaped me either. Because I've been an anime fan for roughly 25 years, I'm vaguely aware of Japanese gang history from the 1980s, Urameshi and Kuwabara from Yu Yu Hakusho, and Fruits Basket's Arisa Uetani. It's clearly enough of a cultural phenomenon that even 90s and 2000s anime would reference it. But I don't really know much else about Akira other than it's based on a 1982 manga with the same name. To recap, dystopian setting, motorcycle gangs, and telekinetic powers. I'm too jaded to expect the happy ending with those ingredients, but I have no idea how this is gonna go. So I guess it's time to grab the snacks and see what Akira is all about. Shut up, Nicole Kidman! Oh, crap, the sermon. Sorry, pardon me. Coming through. So Akira is not fucking around with its title card sequence. It had to have been jarring to an audience that grew up being told that their desk would keep them from becoming a Fallout ghoul. Remember, this premiered just 3 years before the fall of the Soviet Union. The threat of nuclear winter was at the forefront of everyone's mind, especially a Japanese audience that was only 40-some years out from Fat Man and Little Boy hitting Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And a fictitious 2019 Neo-Tokyo on the verge of hosting the 2020 Olympics is kind of juicy too, considering the 2020 Olympics ended up actually being hosted by Japan in Tokyo. It's also kind of creepy that the events during Akira would have caused their Olympics to be delayed, and our real-life Olympics in Tokyo were delayed because of COVID-19. That doesn't mean Akira played a part in any of the real-world events, but it is just one of those delicious, life-imitating art moments that made Oscar Wilde snark with joy. Huzzah! And I promise this isn't random. I love this green stairwell. I love it because I immediately thought of The Afterlife from the R. Talsorian cyberpunk franchise. which, to my knowledge, the afterlife first appeared in the Cyberpunk 2020 rulebook around 1990. Or, more recently, Cyberpunk 2077. Speaking of Cyberpunk, I didn't get nearly as many Cyberpunk vibes from Akira as I thought I would, given the whole near-future dystopia with a penchant for motorcycles. And unlike Cyberpunk of that era, Akira's Japan isn't a global superpower, what with having been blown to hell in the opening sequence. Which I'm realizing is probably a metaphor for the stagflation that Japan was going through at the time. It's a good thing that'll never happen in America. But I was genuinely surprised by the lack of cybernetics, net running, and corporate overlords so often found in the genre. I mean, Tetsuo is fawning over Kanada's computer-controlled anti-lock brakes, and the jukebox in the beginning has CDs instead of vinyl. Oh, right. I'm old. You see, CDs came after cassette tapes and before the iPod, which came before Pandora and Spotify. Wow, Rev, way to sound like a certified uncle. Then again, the Jean Grey Professor X children running around does sound a lot like the precogs in Philip K. Dick's Minority Report. By the end, Akira felt more like a sci-fi neo-noir, akin to Memento, or Chinatown, or Blade Runner. Regardless of my really nitpicky literary classifications, it's hard to believe that this animation came out of the late 80s. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the whodunit romp starring Bob Hoskins and the titular animated Roger, husband of the titular Jessica Rabbit, came out just a few months after Akira. The catch is that Akira cost an order of magnitude less to make, around $5.5 million in 1988. Roger Rabbit allegedly cost somewhere between $50 and $70 million in $88, about $150 to $180 million today. And as a final tangent on Roger Rabbit, Benny the Taxi Cab and whatever this nightmare fuel from Akira is supposed to be are eerily similar in design, though I think that's because they're probably based on the same Tex Avery cartoon. All I know is that an anthropomorphic car that uses its wheels like feet is an affront to God. But now we get into the meat and potatoes of Akira. It's riddled with spoilers, so if you haven't seen it yet either and want to, this is your warning. We already covered a lot of Akira's pop culture references in the intro, but as I watched the movie, I had to pause and grab my notebook just because of the sheer amount of historical bits and bobs that kept popping into my head. The first thing I'll point out is that the Esper's powers are an obvious metaphor for nuclear arms. I mean, there's a reason I mentioned Fat Man and Little Boy in the previous chapter. And I even wrote a note during the opening that the crater over Tokyo serves as much to give foreshadowing to us as it does to set up the movie's inciting incident. Plus, the first time we see Akira's containment housing, I wrote down that it looks a lot like the housing for the Manhattan Project and their first nuclear bomb. Which brings me to an observation. If we're humoring this idea that espers are stand-ins for nukes, then we have to compare Akira's Neo-Tokyo, cultivating those espers, to the Manhattan Project, the United States program that invented nuclear bombs during World War II. Colonel Shikishima is the foil to the Neo-Tokyo government, calling scientists romantics and generally thinking that the advent of Akira and the other espers is opening Pandora's box. Historically, the Manhattan Project seems to be the inverse of that. J. Robert Oppenheimer, the leader of the Manhattan Project, allegedly raised his hands in victory during the Trinity test, the first field test of the atomic bomb. And it wouldn't be until October of 1945, in a meeting with President Truman, well after the nuclear bombings of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, that Oppenheimer supposedly admitted that he had blood on his hands. If Shikishima had been colonel during the Akira incident in 1988, would he have behaved more like Oppenheimer? His opinion of the Akira experiment may be biased because he has the benefit of hindsight. In contrast to the colonel, Akira's Dr. Onishi seems driven purely by scientific discovery, no matter the cost and collateral damage, human or otherwise. And while obviously there were scientists of the Manhattan Project that were of the same mindset as Dr. Onishi, the Frank report is its real-life opposite. You see, in June 1945, just a few weeks before the Trinity tests, University of Chicago scientists wrote a letter to the Truman administration recommending the United States not use the atomic bomb in war. Named for the head of the committee, James Frank. Frank?
Hansel? Hansel?
The Franck report's major fear was the distrust that an unannounced attack on Japan would create. Fears along the lines of stoking an arms race and prejudicing the possibility of reaching an international agreement on the future control of such weapons. Given how well they predicted the future, maybe Colonel Shikishima is meant to represent the Franck Committee, but with cool 80s action sequence badassery. Okay, maybe that's a stretch. On a lighter note, and maybe one last pop culture reference, Tetsuo's march toward Akira's containment unit clearly inspired Omni-Man's turn at the end of Invincible Season 1. Cecil went ham way faster than Shikishima did. He used Invincible's version of the Soul Laser much sooner than the Colonel, but the result is pretty much the same. Omni-Man and Tetsuo arrive in orbit and tear the damn thing apart. But the impotent use of jets and tanks, the vanilla humans that are caught in the crossfire, Tetsuo carved a path through Neo Tokyo so that Invincible's Omni-Man could look back and say, "Hold my beer." Overall, I really enjoyed Akira, especially the English dub on Crunchyroll. There's lots of familiar voices from the industry, like Johnny Young Bosch, Joshua Seth, Wendy Lee, so if you're a smelly dub watcher, like me, you're in for a great performance. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10, especially considering its importance to contemporary media. But there are plenty of other classic and beloved anime that I haven't seen. I'll have a community poll available for anyone who wants a vote for my next confessional. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next sermon.